Right, let's just dive straight into this explainer. We're unpacking the fascinating biological mechanics of hydration today and looking into exactly why water is the ultimate fuel for your body. We're going to break down the hard science of what's really happening inside you when you drink, and honestly, what happens when you don't. So to kick things off, I've got a kind of bizarre but totally relevant question for you based on our source material. Are you essentially a walking vegetable? I mean, think about it. We know water is virtually everywhere around us, from the soil to the ice caps, but it's also inside us, making up so much of our cellular structure that we actually share some pretty surprising similarities with the produce aisle. Here's how we're going to map out the Goldilocks principle of hydration today. First, the ocean inside us. Then, the mechanics of dehydration. Third, the overhydration danger. And finally, how to find your perfect balance. Okay, part one, the ocean inside us. We really need to understand exactly how much fluid you're carrying around right now to grasp why hydration is so absolutely critical. Depending on things like your age, your sex, and your body fat index, the average adult is actually made up of a staggering 55 to 60% water. It's wild, right? You aren't just walking around with a little bit of fluid inside you. You are basically a carefully contained vessel that is majority water. And it's even more extreme at the very beginning of life. Human babies are actually 75% water at birth. The source material points out that this makes them swimmingly similar to fish. Then, as they grow and develop, they literally dry out just a bit, dropping to about 65% water composition by the time they hit their first birthday. This really puts things into perspective when you look at our organs. Water isn't just floating around in your blood, it's the main ingredient of your major organs. Your adult brain and your heart have a moisture content of 73%. That's the exact same moisture content as a banana. Meanwhile, your lungs sit at an incredibly wet 83%, making them compositionally identical to an apple. Heck, even your seemingly dry bones are actually 31% water. Now, all this immense volume of water isn't just sitting there stagnant. It's constantly working, every single second of the day. It acts as a crucial cushion and lubricant for your joints so you can move around smoothly. It regulates your body temperature. And, super importantly, it actively nourishes your brain and spinal cord. Which brings us to part two, the mechanics of dehydration. See, because we're constantly using all this water, we're constantly losing it. We're talking 2 to 3 liters every single day, just gone, through sweat, bathroom visits, and honestly, just by breathing. So what happens when we don't replace that lost fluid? Well, it sets off a pretty intense biological chain reaction. At the very first sign of low water, sensory receptors in your brain's hypothalamus sound the alarm. They signal the release of an antidiuretic hormone. When this hits your kidneys, it forces them to create special channels called aquaporins. Basically, it makes your blood aggressively absorb and hold on to whatever water it has left, which, by the way, is exactly why your urine gets super dark and concentrated when you're dehydrated. And here is where it gets kind of scary. Because of that lack of water, a dehydrated brain literally has to work significantly harder to accomplish the exact same basic tasks as a normal, hydrated brain. And, incredibly, the lack of moisture actually causes your brain tissue to temporarily shrink. This shrinking, overworked brain manifests in some very real daily side effects. You're going to see noticeable drops in your energy and your mood. It decreases your skin moisture, lowers your blood pressure, and brings on clear signs of cognitive impairment. So, you know that dreaded afternoon brain fog or sudden mood dip? Yeah, that might literally just be your dehydrated, shrinking brain begging for a drink. Okay, hearing all that, you might be thinking, right, I'll just chug as much water as physically possible all the time. But that leads us to part three, the overhydration danger. The sources highlight a really surprising and frankly serious danger on the exact opposite end of the spectrum. The medical term for this overhydration is hyponatria, and it's usually caused by drinking way too much water in a really short amount of time. Athletes are actually frequent victims of this because they face such complex complications trying to regulate their water levels while pushing through extreme physical conditions. Biologically, here is what goes wrong. While a dehydrated brain ramps up that antidiuretic hormone, an overhydrated brain basically does the opposite. It completely slows down or stops releasing that hormone. Because of this, the sodium electrolytes in your body become dangerously diluted, and that actively causes your cells to swell up. In severe cases, this cellular swelling leads to a condition called water intoxication. This happens simply because the kidneys cannot keep up with processing such a massive volume of dilute urine. The result, severe headaches, vomiting, and in extreme, rare instances, it can even lead to seizures or death. Basically, too much water can be just as devastating as too little. Now, please don't panic. Water intoxication is a highly extreme situation. For those of us with access to clean drinking water, managing our hydration on a normal, day-to-day basis is totally achievable. Let's move to part 4, finding your perfect balance. First things first, you can completely forget that old drink exactly 8 glasses a day rule. Science has totally moved past that. The modern consensus shows that the exact amount you actually need depends heavily on your specific body weight and the environment you're in. The recommended baseline shifts depending on who you are. For men, the daily intake varies between 2.5 and 3.7 liters. For women, it sits at about 2 to 2.7 liters. And remember, this is a sliding scale. You've got to adjust this range up or down if you're super active, if you're older, or if you're hanging out in an environment where you're overheating. And here's a fantastic stat that really changes how we think about daily intake. You don't actually have to drink all of that liquid from a glass. Roughly a fifth, like 20% of your daily water intake, actually comes straight from the food you eat. And hey, while pure water is obviously the ultimate hydrator, other drinks absolutely count. Yes, even your caffeinated coffee or tea helps replenish your fluids. Add to that your nutrient-dense, fiber-rich foods, strawberries, cucumbers, and surprisingly, even broccoli. They are all composed of over 90% water. They act as a massive supplement to your liquid intake. Getting this balance right isn't just a quick fix to avoid an afternoon slump. The sources show that optimal hydration has proven serious long-term health benefits. Consistently staying hydrated can actually lower your chances of having a stroke, help manage diabetes, and potentially even reduce your risk of developing certain types of cancer. It's a real game changer. So, knowing what we know now, knowing that your brain, your mood, your joints, and your organs are quite literally relying on this vast ocean inside of you to function, ask yourself, could a simple glass of water change how you function today? I'd say absolutely. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and hey, go grab a glass of water.